Kavya. I'm 24 years old and I currently work as a job coach with Vishesh. So I live with this tongue twistery medical condition called Arthrogryposis Multiplex Congenita. In simple terms, it basically means that my body has a lot of joint contractures. And by joint contractures, I mean that some of my joints are stiff, some have limited movement, and as a whole, my body has weak muscles and strength. And because of that, I use a wheelchair to move around. So, actually, AMC has a lot of variants. There are more than 400 variants. Um, yeah, but yes, but mine is Amyoplasia, which basically means that my limbs are more affected than the other joints in my body. So for fun, I actually love to travel. I think that really contradicts the fact that I use a wheelchair and I am too too big a travel lover for someone who lives mostly in a wheelchair. But yeah, so for fun, I usually spend time with my family and spend time with people around, with neighbors, relatives. I'm really that kind of a person who, really likes being in a gathering, but don't ask me to be the spotlight. I just like to be there, absorb what is being talked about, and, participate in conversations maybe. So, but at the same time, I also enjoy my own company. Yes, and I think to a great extent, because, so educationally, I am from a psychology background. I have recently completed my master's in applied psychology from the University of Delhi. So, taking you back to my school days, in 10th grade, we had this, choice to choose between psychology and multimedia and web designing for our 11th and 12th grade. So, given the fact that I was so creative and I loved the arts, I was very much inclined to take up web designing and multimedia. But unfortunately, my school did not have an elevator or a ramp at that period of time. And all the computer labs were on the third floor. So, given no, I even discussed this with my class teacher, and she said that I only had one choice left, and that was to take up psychology. And that is how I switched towards psychology. And after that, I started reading up more about what psychology is, what it covers, and things like those. And I think had it not been for that inaccessibility, I may have not ventured into psychology ever. So I think here, both my disability and the resulting inaccessibility, it became a blessing in disguise. So I think there are certain layers to discussing my disability with people. Or at the outset, I am very comfortable and, open to discussing my disability and, helping them know what, my disabled life looks like. But at the same time, if it is something which is coming from a stranger, and at the very first meeting, then I would get a little hesitant and uncomfortable um, because I think even for me, for someone who has been living with a disability for as long as I have been there, I mean, it comes from a very personal space because um, discussing my disability is like unraveling, um, a layer into my personal self, into who I am really. And sharing that in the very first instance gets a little overwhelming, I would say. But if it is, if it is at a later point in life, not life, but later in the conversation, then I think then it would be more easier for me. So one thing that people might be surprised to know about me is that um, I have a good sense of humor for someone who lives with a disability, and I usually put that out through the memes that I make on disability. And yeah, I mean, I love humor, and I feel that you know even serious things, if conveyed with a tinge of humor, they can reach to a date, they can reach a deeper level of understanding. And that is also why I started using memes as a medium of raising awareness and taking forth the advocacy that I am into. And I feel, through my audience, I also feel that, from the feedback that they keep sharing, um, the memes have really helped them to understand what disability is and how living with a disability looks like. So, yeah, but yeah, I'm pretty humorous for a disabled person. Right. So I think disability has come a long way from being portrayed as um an object of sympathy, charity, and care, um, you know, um, inspiration, to more realistic representation. And but I still feel that, the authentic experiences of people with disabilities are somewhere lost because the representation tends to just oscillate between two ends, and those are either people with disabilities are shown as extremely inspiring overachievers, some people with superpowers and amazing talents, and things like those. Or on the other hand, they are shown as, you know those who are not smart, who are not creative, who who are just given sympathy and um charity. You know, these I feel are the major paradigms that evolve. But recently, I would say, web series like Mismatched, for instance, they have really tapped into um, authentic experiences of a person who is also a wheelchair user. And say, for instance, sex education. I think what should really matter is not the fact that the person is disabled, and they should highlight their disabled experiences, but just that they're a character who's there in the story, and disability is secondary to their role.
Okay.
I think it also feels like it feels that if there's a disabled character in their movie or a TV show, then that character has to be central one, and there has to be something meaningful coming out of their life. Some kind of a moral, some kind of a lesson, something of that sort. Or the story should highlight the challenges that they experience, the struggle, things like those. But in fact, people with disabilities just live their lives. I mean, they're just as ordinary as any other person. The only difference is that we live lives um, that have inaccessibility, ableism, a bit of stereotyping to it. But yeah, all in all, the journey remains the same. Okay, so I think this has to do something with, how would it be like when my parents or my family is not there with me? That basically how would things turn out to be, or how would life turn out to be if I do not have my family with me? And I know that day would definitely come, but yeah, I think it is a little scary to think about that. I see myself working at the intersection of disability and psychology. It's somewhere on that front. I think accepting myself and my disability, because I think on a general level, everyone has some things that they're not able to do, and this realization has just it has just been easier over time, because you know as a person with a disability, um there's not one but there are many things which I can't do, and um and there's dependence and support from people around me, and there's also a lot of um on a general level, the representation of disability is not very much. Like, we don't see a lot of disabled people around, and that has somewhere, that somewhere affects how we see ourselves, because we don't really have someone to look up to, and the only role models we have, they're mostly non-disabled people. So there's a certain um, tendency to fit, into their boxes and the way they do things and things like those. But on personal levels, the fact is that um, our disabled selves and our disabled bodies look very different. They look differently, they function differently, and they do things differently. And that acceptance when you're surrounded by so much of, um, when you're surrounded by uh, non-disabled people, and I think that acceptance takes some time. So, um, so yeah, I think I'm still trying to learn more of that. I think, I think, access becomes very important that ways. And navigating that on a day-to-day basis, it gets a little frustrating at times. It's like you questioning yourself that why is it not there when everyone around me can go about um, their daily lives without thinking twice about, whether there would be lift or ramp or stairs where we're heading out to, then why do you have to bear the brunt of this? So I think it gets a little frustrating over time, but yeah, we are seeing progress, and I believe that it would be better in the coming future. As we were all stuck with COVID-19 in 2022 and we didn't have the means to, cope up with it, and almost the entire disabled community was of the opinion that, as the lockdown struck, that, this is how disabled people have been living for years and years. And, now when it is fallen upon the entire world, then we are thinking about inclusive solutions. Work from home, for instance. Um, I mean, as soon as there was the outbreak of COVID and the lockdown, every organization went into the work from home mode. But prior to the pandemic, when people with disabilities or or expectant mothers or people with chronic illnesses, when they were uh, asking for such accommodations, there was literally nothing. I mean, they were being laid off and, they were being asked to not come to work. I would say yes, a little, because, like I said, there was a lot of apprehension into accepting myself and the way I look, because, my disability is very, very visible. Not just with the fact that I use a wheelchair, but also with the way my hands move, the way I sit, and, maybe in the way I talk or, things like those. So it made me very, very conscious of myself and, how other people around me might be seeing me. But I think here the greatest support that I have received is from my family. So I think as far as learning new things is concerned, I think my parents have been my biggest cheerleaders and supporters in making sure that I go to extracurricular activities or you know venture into new things. And I remember when we were in Delhi and I was still in school, both my sister and I used to go for music classes and art classes, and my mother even enrolled me into Shamak Davar's dance classes because she felt that it might be a fun activity for me, even though it was uh, she who had to carry me to the basement where the classes were held every day. And I think because of that, I have this thing to try out new things in me. And had it not been for them, I think um, there would not be so much excitement and adventure in my life that there is at the moment. Yes, I mean not not so much at present, but back when I was in school, so we used to have our midterm examinations and our annual examinations as well. And so at that period of time, we were not aware that there are proper guidelines for students with disabilities to get compensatory time in examinations. And so we sort of negotiated with the examination head at school to give me some time more than the total time so that I could complete my exam. So at that period of time, there was a lot of explaining as to why do I need that extra time, and at that time even I was not very aware about what AMC exactly is, and how it manifests itself into different ways, because I could write well in regular classes in the 40-minute periods, but when it came to longer stretches of physical work, it became extremely difficult. So, as I learned more about myself and how my disability, affects me, it became a lot more easier on both sides. Yes, definitely. I think, yeah, I mean, I began researching about MC, and even now I think there's a lot to know, because there's so little research that is there, and I'm not sure how many people with AMC are there in India. It is such a rare condition. So, but yeah, definitely, I know myself much more, I think much better than I used to back in those years. So I think a lot of issues that is there. First and foremost is awareness about disability and various aspects related to it. So, knowing your disability and yourself better, and other things like what are one's rights as someone who's disabled, and things like those. Then, because accessibility is one of the major challenges that are still there. Um, an attitude of people around, I think every person with disability who goes out in a public space, they get stared at as if they don't belong there. Because disability is still such a new concept, I would say. Because whenever I go out, even in my society where I live, even there, I will find at least 4 to 5 people just looking at me very curiously, trying to make sense of what is this woman doing on a wheelchair in the playground. Because that is very fascinating to them. So I think maybe we can counter this and we can, raise more awareness as in the society by, by teaching children about disability, about how natural it is, and um, how people with disabilities are just people first and disabled people later. Little thing, teaching children to be more empathetic. And why I'm focusing children? Because when they grow up, they'll be more comfortable around people with disabilities. The diversity in AMC is a lot.
Yes.
There are people who are able to walk, the people who are ambulatory wheelchair users. There are people who are not able to walk at all. Then the people who are able to go about their lives as just other people. When where the disability is not impacting them a lot. So I think if we were to consider AMC, the mobility challenges might be there, and in some people, and they might not be there in some people. So these issues would really depend on the person and would vary across people. Because so it would be really different for me as someone who needs a lot of care and support, and it would be contrastingly different for someone who is able to walk and whose mobility is not impacted in a great way. Maybe I would say that even though I use a wheelchair, I still love to travel, and I just love to visit people, places. Um, I really love taking photographs of things that I like, be it mountains, um, restaurants, even food. And I also live with scoliosis, which is a curvature in the spine, and it seems that I'm very fat, but I'm not. It's just my spine taking games, and I would also like them to know that it is not necessary that fat people are unhealthy or they eat a lot of junk food.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and yeah, first, I'm just a person first, so you should not judge me by my disability. It is my mobile phone. Yeah, because it is literally there with me 24/7, and I have adapted it in a way that it causes less muscle fatigue when I use my hands. For instance, I use Google keyboard to type and write. So I have this 100 more where I can just use one of my hands to type, and that is my right hand, and more specifically just my right arm.
Okay.
And apart from that, I also use assistive menu on my phone, which which basically has buttons for various functions like, taking a screenshot or, pulling out notification bar or, I think which requires the use of both hands at the same time. So, yeah, but yeah, my mobile phone is the only device that I use all the time apart from my PwDs. I mean, I just try to talk to myself, you know, um, just sitting in a room and just um saying whatever I feel like, and um just sort of understanding what I'm feeling and trying to feel that without any judgments. I mean, it doesn't come that easily, but yeah, I try to do that. So I think that there are a couple of things that I am able to think about at the moment. First is that people with disabilities are, you know, I mean, they can also have uh, social needs and sexual needs as well. And, they might want to be in relationships, they might not want to be in relationships, they might want to get married, they might want to have partners, or they might not. So that is an entire choice. But, at times we tend to stereotype them by not linking them with any of these, which is not right, because again we are denying them their right of choice to be who they are. So firstly this, then I think the impact of having the impact of one's disability on the family members is not really talked about. So for instance, if we talk about mothers of children with disability, then I think caregiving is often seen as a maternal trait, and more so for a child with a disability. Because, at times when the mother wants to work or pursue maybe any hobby or anything that you wish to do, then the question comes that who would look after your child, that you should not be doing this, the child is suffering, which might not be the case at all. You know, things like these. And if you were to talk about siblings of children with disability, then I think they have they are seen as caregivers a little early, that they might have they have to look after their sibling or take care of them, um, be there, or even if they're the young one, then be the elder one for their disabled siblings. I think these are a little too hard roles that are there, and these are not talked about because the focus almost always remains on the disabled family member. So these things just go out of the focus. And directly or indirectly, the disability impacts not just the mental health of someone who lives with it, but also those who are interacting or who are related to that person.